We talk about this as a staff. Like, our losses are louder than other teams because we're the Lakers, and because of the way we lose. You get this deep in the season, and again tonight was a one possession clutch game, which now we've lost a few of those, but we've been great for the most part in the clutch all year. Our losses are louder. I would say. So we had some adversity tonight. Did we not respond?
I suppose we could say they responded. Monica is up with us, and we've got her satellite working. The Windman is here, and Joe Fortenbaugh. The Lakers, as we speak, are sitting in the 6th spot in the West. They are 1 game ahead of Phoenix for what would be the first play-in spot. Windy, was this a sound the alarms kind of night for the Lakers?
No, I think the way JJ said it there is about right. This is kind of who the Lakers are. They're a flawed team. They're a very poor defensive team. For example, the Suns, in the last 10 games, they were 30th in the league in offense. 30th. And they get 113 points here. And if you look at this last play, this is the Lakers. The Suns specifically run a play to isolate Luka Doncic on defense because he's a very weak defender. They attack him, and the entire Lakers defense collapses because they have no basket defender. Because watch LeBron come run here. He's like, oh my God, we got to help, and they're caught in transition. This happened the entire night. This is an indication of the flawed Lakers roster. And if you say to me, well then why did they build this team? Well, they built this team because they thought Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves would be just so killer on offense that you wouldn't have these situations, and they just ain't. They're a poor defensive team where their 3 best offensive players when they play together. And this is not an insult to Luka. It's not an insult to LeBron. It's not saying they hate each other. It's not like some headline thing. They are too similar to each other. And the data shows it. When they play, Greeny, they're a bad team. They're a bad offensive team. So this is really just a product of what they are. Early in the season, they pretty much won every clutch game. They won their first 13 clutch games. But it was a fake. It was a fake record. And now the worm is turning on them. And JJ set up great offensive plays the last 2 games to get shots at the end of the games. Beautiful job by the coaching staff. You don't win all the clutch games.
Yeah.
So you don't get into clutch games. They're just an average team, and they're going to blow it up in the offseason, and everybody knows this, and we'll just go through the process and enjoy it.
So the future is going to be interesting for the Lakers, and Luka will be the center of that. But the immediate future was what I wanted to ask Joe about. Joe, I was looking at your notes, and there was a best bet that I found fascinating. Go.
Yeah, they play soft. I'd bet they miss the playoffs. I know that sounds crazy, and people will say, well, look at this, look at that. It's not a coin flip situation. They're offering us 10-1. What does 10-1 mean? It means 9%. So ask yourself, is there a greater than, less than, or equal to 9% chance of them missing the playoffs? I think it's greater than that. I think Phoenix gets past them and pushes them into the play-in. And once they're there, wouldn't be surprised if they completely implode and pack it in. They're a team that doesn't play any defense, as Wendy was telling you, 24th in defensive rating. Through 58 games, I believe it is this season, they have a negative point differential and a negative net rating. They're 19th in net rating. They play soft defense. Can you get DeAndre Aton to play consistent for you night in and night out? Do you have leadership? Are you going to make a big push down the stretch? You offer me 10-1 that they miss the playoffs. I'll take that bet, Greeny.
10-1 that they missed the playoffs. Again, losing in the play-in constitutes missing the playoffs. So that makes that an interesting bet. The playoffs
Correct.
do not include the play-in. While we think of those as playoff games, they don't technically count as playoff games. Does that sound right, Wendy? Are we living in a world where the playoffs are going to begin in late April and LeBron James and Luka Doncic are not going to be a part of them?
I think they will make the playoffs. However, again, just like with what JJ said, I take issue with none of what Joe said there. I think that is an absolute fair assessment of the situation. They are not a good team. They were overachieving when they were in, 3rd and 4th place. I will say this, their schedule left in the season is not that bad. They have a favorable schedule. They play a number of tanking teams. The teams around them in the Western Conference are largely losing. The middle of the West right now is sort of a graveyard. So it's certainly not insurmountable. I would say that they would make the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere in the playoffs. And it's, again, 10-1. I think Joe is offering very sound advice there.
Okay, guys, stay with me here, and we'll get Monica working as the morning continues. Much more hoops, but let's go.
The minute you're missing a player, one of your star players, and if you're missing 2, you better believe that whatever's going to be on that floor is going to have tons of energy. They're going to be scrappy. They got nothing to lose. You got LeBron, Luka coming in here. That's a dangerous game to play. And you have to have your antennas up from the beginning. And I thought the Lakers, you know, they played hard. I thought they fought back to, you know, to get rid of that deficit tied at halftime. But 22 threes, and then on top of that, you give up 15 offensive rebounds. That's given them more opportunities to knock down threes. And so, yeah, it was a scrappy game. The Lakers, you know, just didn't have enough to deal with, you know, the effort, I thought, and the energy that Phoenix. I mean, Gillespie and Grayson Allen, they hit a lot of threes, and then you saw that last play, they were willing to shoot it with confidence, and they did tonight.
I do want to take a look at that last play, if we could, just again, because we were sitting here kind of breaking it all down, and you said they worked for it, despite...
It was a great possession. They were very patient. They attacked the paint. They got the switch that they wanted. You know, they were attacking Luka. That was the game plan, which most teams are going to do. Not because he's just a terrible defender, but he's the weaker defender of the Lakers, right? We want to wear him down. He's at 41, so it's like, all right, how do we slow Luka down? Make him play defense.
Yep.
Got the switch. Grayson Allen attacked. He took his time. He made a hell of a pass from baseline to the corner, and then the corner swung Royce O'Neal, top wing three, and then JJ drew up a hell of a drop too. You know, and to me, I think Phoenix didn't play this well either.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a hell of a draw for a great look for Austin Reeves, one of your top shooters, one of your top scorers, one of your top players, to get a great look to tie it. So great execution down the stretch for both teams offensively, but they were lacking on the defensive boxing out. There was a lot of offensive, you know, rebound putbacks. Even on the Lakers side, Jake had some great possessions. Braun had a putback. So it got sloppy at a time, but high energy, high intense game. And like Big Game said, there's nothing more dangerous than a wounded animal. And that wounded animal got some confidence, like you spoke about late in the game. They were taking shots and knocking down shots without their two stars confidently. And Jalen Green didn't have it going. So really 3 of your top guys were not playing, two not playing, one not playing well. But everybody else kind of stepped up. You got to give them credit. 22 threes is hard to come back from. The Lakers did show some character of fighting and getting back. Luka brought him back, got him in it. Marcus Smart made some plays down the stretch. But unfortunately, it was a little too late.
I was going to say, you get 49 combined from Gillespie and Grayson Allen, but then again, those 15 offensive rebounds. Did you like the possession there down the stretch? As you mentioned, a heck of a draw up there by JJ for Austin. He's been in those moments before. He's hit game winners in a Laker uniform before. He had an awesome look there to tie it up.
Yeah, I agree with Danny, too. I mean, Phoenix just allowed that to happen. There's no way they should have been anywhere inside of the three-point line. They should have just been out there and let them have the two. But what a great play.
Yeah, great screen. Maxi Kleber made a great screen.
The out-of-bounds pass was really difficult, too, to get that over there. Had a good, clean look at it. Ran it between two players for distraction, kind of a pick. Yeah. And he was wide open. So
little elevator screen.
It was a good, that what they call it?
Yeah, you haven't seen one of those in a while. They used to do that like early Golden State days. Clay and Steph would set a cross screen and run through the elevator and close the doors. You can't get through.
Well, also, sometimes I like to see the play again because I don't know how open Grayson was, Allen Grayson, when he was going down. Sometimes I think you got to make a guy make a tough shot at the rim if he's defended properly. But if it's wide open, you got to help. And so when the help came, that kind of broke the defense.
He got a step on Luka, pretty good step. Somebody had to come. I think it was Braun had to come help. Drew two, and then the one V-back, it was Austin Reeves. He's got to play two guys. So wherever that pass goes, a lot of teams anticipate that pass to steal it. But then if you miss it, if he throws it to that wing, it's a three. But he still threw it, got it through, which was a hell of a pass, and then swing to Royce O'Neal at the top of wing, and he knocked it down.
Here's the play right here.
There you go. It gets by Luka a little bit. It's Braun.
Yeah.
And then AR, and then you get a full rotation by Drake trying to get there, but he's just so far behind. Yeah. ball moves.
That's also disciplined by Phoenix.
Yeah,
the
ball moves
patience,
faster than the man,
ball
right? So
movement.
if you don't hesitate and you swing like you're supposed to, you're going to get some open looks. And they did that all night. You know, that wasn't just on the last play. Like Gillespie, Grayson Allen, they were playing two-man games, slipping out of screens. Gillespie throwing go with the big, putting Luka in action.
Say it one more time.
They're just moving the ball so well tonight, and that's why they got so many uncontested great looks from the three-point line and got so many attempts, way more attempts, you know, pretty much doubling the Lakers' attempts, I would say, and then getting some good looks and got in rhythm.
When the Hall of Famer asks,
Let's see one
we
more.
deliver.
I just want to see.
One more
If everybody stays at home, he probably hits a decent shot or gets a good look at it.
He's getting a layup. He's probably going to get a layup. If Bron just stays home, he's probably going to get a right-hand layup. But naturally, yeah, I mean, I guess, do you give that up over a layup? Probably.
That extra pass was amazing, though, to have the patience to keep that back
didn't even
out.
hesitate. Touch pass. Gillespie.
I feel like right now this is the question I continue to ask. We asked it on Sunday. You talk about it after Tuesday, after you lose 3 in a row, and especially with where you are in the standings. A loss to Phoenix, who was 2 games behind you coming into this one big game. Now they're a game behind you. You're also 11-16 versus teams above 500. Every game matters. You got 24 to play here down the stretch.
Yeah, they're in a tough place right now, and they have some tough teams coming up. You know, we've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. This is 3 games in a row that they've lost. They're still in 6th place, which is hard to believe.
Too close for me to be in the play-in, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
And before this game, I'm thinking, you know, they're not worried about Phoenix. They're looking forward. And right now, you're kind of looking backwards now because this is, again, a team that is down bodies, and you allow them to catch up a game. And I don't know their strength of schedule the rest of the way, but once they get those 2 other guys back and playing, you know, this is dangerous. And now you're going to put yourself in a situation where you have to win a game to get into the playoffs. And then when you do win those games or win one of those games, you're welcomed with meeting the OKC Thunder or the San Antonio Spurs, because the Spurs are only a game and a half or 2 games behind the Thunder. So you don't want to meet those 2 monsters in the first round of the playoffs.
Despite 41-8-8 from Luka Doncic, the Lakers.
The frustration level, just the way that you had control of this game, a couple of different occasions, they come back, all the threes that they hit, all the frustrating plays, and a 3rd straight loss.
Very high. And that's what sucks, you know, because we have shown time after time that we can do it. We just got to put it together for 48 minutes. And that's something we're still working on. I know it's late in the season and we should probably already have it, but you know, everybody's trying to figure out everybody still, and we're trying to just, you know, win. And everybody's trying to contribute in their own way. And, you know, we early on in the season, it was working. Now it's not. Now we just got to adjust and find a new way to win it. But, yeah, we got to put 48 minutes together. We have told them ourselves. And that's, I think, the frustrating part, not just from us. I think to our coaches, I think to our fans, and I just think in basketball in the league, period, you know, we have told them ourselves, and we can't keep doing that. So.
Does it feel like you guys are making progress in that regard?
It definitely is. You know, we talk about getting 1% better every day, and it does. We are making that progress, but we have to do more of it, and that's what it comes down to.
I would say this: we talk about this as a staff. Like, our losses are louder than other teams because we're the Lakers, and because of the way we lose. You know, you get this deep in the season, and again, tonight was a 1-possession clutch game, which, you know, now we've, you know, lost a few of those, but we've been great for the most part in the clutch all year. Our losses are louder. I would say. So we had some adversity tonight. Did we not respond?
I think after, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think
you're not going to avoid adversity
for sure. But I mean, you know? I think maybe it's quicker. Maybe it's a next play mentality, more of that. I just kind of, it's not just a full-on tonight issue.
No, I thought our guys were great with that tonight. I mean, there's basketball's a game of mistakes, and you know, we made mistakes, just like, you know, I make mistakes. I don't think Jordan Ott coached a perfect game. I don't think their players, you know, Grayson Allen kicked our butt. He was 9 for 24. Like, that's the game. And so I think our guys responded tonight.
Are you absolutely certain that you want to continue subjecting yourself to this Lakers season? Or have you somehow developed the kind of supernatural psychological resilience typically reserved for individuals who voluntarily choose to watch reality television marathons during natural disasters? Emergency room physicians working consecutive 12-hour shifts while dealing with patients who insist that WebMD diagnoses are more accurate than medical degrees. Bomb disposal specialists who approach their daily responsibilities with the same casual confidence most people reserve for choosing their breakfast cereal. Cryptocurrency investors who continue believing that TikTok financial advice represents sound investment strategy despite losing their life savings 3 separate times. Netflix algorithm engineers who spend their entire careers trying to understand why people voluntarily watch movies with 12% Rotten Tomatoes ratings. Or perhaps most impressively, those remarkably resilient souls who still maintain unwavering faith in this Lakers organization, despite witnessing them transform what should be routine victories against undermanned opponents into psychological thrillers that make horror movies seem like relaxing bedtime stories. Because if you're still reading this after watching Austin Reeves miss an open corner 3 at the buzzer while Royce O'Neal celebrated like he just discovered the secret to eternal youth, then you clearly possess exactly the kind of masochistic dedication that Lakers fans have been cultivating since this franchise decided that winning basketball games should involve maximum dramatic tension, regardless of opponent quality or circumstances. But here's the question that absolutely nobody in mainstream basketball media wants to address with even a shred of intellectual honesty. Why exactly are we pretending that yesterday evening's 113-110 defeat to Phoenix represents some kind of organizational failure, rather than acknowledging that this Lakers season has been deliberately designed by the basketball gods to test every conceivable limit of human emotional endurance? Because when you actually examine what happened during those final 0.9 seconds against a Suns team missing both Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks, it becomes painfully obvious that this franchise exists in some kind of parallel universe where mathematical probability doesn't apply. And championship caliber talent consistently finds creative ways to transform routine victories into elaborate performance art pieces that challenge your fundamental understanding of how professional basketball actually works when elite athletes are supposedly trying to win games. Does anyone else find it absolutely fascinating that this organization can execute beautiful offensive sequences for 38 minutes, build comfortable leads against inferior opponents, demonstrate exactly the kind of tactical intelligence and individual brilliance that separates championship contenders from mediocre franchises, only to allow random role players like Royce O'Neal to become temporarily transformed into Stephen Curry during crucial possessions when games are decided by execution rather than talent? Or are we all just going to pretend that basketball makes perfect sense and that losing close games to undermanned opponents represents normal competitive variance rather than evidence that this Lakers team exists in some kind of cosmic joke designed specifically to test the mental health of everyone foolish enough to care about their success? And why exactly should we continue believing that individual brilliance from players like Luka Doncic, who casually dropped 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists while making it look easier than most people find tying their shoes, somehow doesn't matter when evaluating this team's championship potential? Particularly when you consider that elite individual performances during close games against competitive opponents typically indicate exactly the kind of talent foundation that championship organizations build upon, rather than somehow representing evidence of systematic failure or tactical incompetence from coaching staff who clearly understand basketball strategy better than most of their critics understand basic mathematics. But here's what all these supposed basketball experts, casual observers, social media critics, and self-appointed roster construction specialists seem to conveniently overlook when they're busy writing premature obituaries for this Lakers season, while completely ignoring the fundamental basketball intelligence that separates championship organizations from franchises that accidentally stumble into temporary success through favorable circumstances and lucky injury situations. Isn't it absolutely fascinating how quickly people forget that every legendary Lakers team in franchise history has navigated similar periods of adversity, external criticism, and temporary setbacks that ultimately served as stepping stones rather than roadblocks toward championship excellence, particularly when you consider that this current roster possesses more raw talent, basketball IQ, and championship experience than 90% of the league's so-called contenders, who somehow receive praise from media personalities for achieving significantly less impressive results with more favorable circumstances, easier schedules, and better injury luck throughout their respective seasons. Since you clearly possess the analytical sophistication necessary to recognize championship potential, despite temporary setbacks that would confuse casual basketball observers who apparently learned everything they know about competitive sports from highlight reels and social media hot takes, absolutely demolish that like button with the intensity of someone who understands that building championship teams requires patience, strategic thinking, and the kind of long-term vision that separates intelligent basketball analysis from reactive emotional responses that ignore the complex variables affecting team development over multi-year championship windows, when organizational excellence becomes more important than individual game results. But let's address the elephant in the room that everyone seems determined to ignore. How exactly did we reach the point where Brian Windhorst can appear on national television and declare with apparent confidence that when the three are together, they're a bad team, when referring to Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves, without anyone bothering to ask whether this sample size provides sufficient evidence for such sweeping conclusions, or whether the circumstances surrounding their limited playing time together might include factors like injury interruptions, opponent quality, officiating inconsistencies, and the kinds of random basketball variants that affect every team throughout long seasons, when competitive intensity varies dramatically between games that matter for playoff positioning and contests where teams are experimenting with rotations or managing player health concerns? Isn't it absolutely remarkable how quickly supposed basketball experts forget that championship-level chemistry requires repetition, trust building, and shared experiences that can't be manufactured through media pressure or fan demands for immediate perfection? Particularly when you consider that even the most successful basketball combinations in NBA history required significant time to develop the kind of seamless integration that casual observers somehow expect to appear instantly whenever three talented players share the court together, regardless of their previous experience playing as a collective unit. And speaking of things that media personalities conveniently overlook when constructing their narratives, why exactly does nobody want to acknowledge that this Lakers team has consistently competed at a high level despite facing injury challenges, roster turnover, coaching adjustments, and the kinds of external pressures that would devastate organizations with less championship DNA, organizational stability, and systematic approaches to overcoming adversity through preparation and tactical flexibility, rather than hoping that talent alone can overcome every possible obstacle? The broader context surrounding yesterday's 113-110 defeat to Phoenix reveals exactly what any knowledgeable basketball observer would expect when examining the complexities of competitive basketball at the highest level, because while losing to a Suns team missing both Devin Booker and Dillon Brooks might appear disappointing to casual fans who evaluate success exclusively through individual game results rather than understanding the comprehensive factors that influence basketball outcomes. The reality is that professional basketball games are determined by dozens of variables, including shooting variance, officiating consistency, injury management, and the kind of random basketball occurrences that can affect any contest, regardless of talent differential or preparation quality. And pretending that single-game results somehow represent accurate evaluations of organizational competence or championship potential demonstrates exactly the kind of analytical superficiality that prevents most basketball discourse from reaching meaningful conclusions about team building and competitive strategy. What makes yesterday's result particularly interesting from an analytical perspective is how it demonstrates the fine margins that separate victory from defeat in competitive basketball environments where every possession matters and teams must execute consistently under pressure while dealing with the kinds of external factors that can influence individual games without reflecting underlying talent levels or organizational competence. Because when you examine the tactical execution that led to Royce O'Neal's game-winning shot opportunity, it becomes clear that Phoenix executed exactly the kind of ball movement and spacing concepts that championship teams use to create quality looks during pressure situations. While the Lakers' defensive positioning, though fundamentally sound, according to their scheme, couldn't account for the kind of precise execution that occasionally occurs when opposing players perform at their absolute peak level during crucial moments. But here's what absolutely nobody wants to discuss with any degree of intellectual honesty. How is Austin Reeves somehow receiving blame for missing an open corner three-pointer at the buzzer when the Lakers' offensive execution created exactly the kind of high-quality shot opportunity that championship teams consistently generate during crucial possessions? And shouldn't we be praising the coaching staff and players for their ability to advance the ball effectively and create a clean look for one of their most reliable shooters, rather than focusing exclusively on the unsuccessful outcome that influenced the final score while ignoring the systematic excellence that created that opportunity in the first place? I believe this sequence actually demonstrates exactly why this Lakers organization represents such an attractive destination for championship caliber talent, because teams that can consistently generate quality shot opportunities during pressure situations possess the kind of tactical sophistication and execution capability that separates legitimate contenders from franchises that rely on individual heroics or favorable circumstances to create scoring chances when games are decided by possessions rather than extended offensive runs that mask systematic deficiencies in half-court execution and basketball intelligence. The individual brilliance that Luka Doncic displayed throughout the contest, particularly his 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists performance against quality NBA competition, demonstrates exactly why this Lakers organization has become the destination of choice for elite basketball talent who understand the difference between temporary setbacks and long-term championship potential. Because players of Doncic's caliber don't accidentally achieve those statistical outputs without possessing the kind of basketball intelligence, competitive drive, and systematic preparation that translates into sustained excellence when surrounded by the appropriate supporting talent and organizational infrastructure that maximizes individual strengths while minimizing weaknesses through tactical adjustments and strategic roster construction. However, here's where the most frustrating aspect of external criticism becomes apparent, and this question needs to be asked directly. How exactly do people expect individual excellence to automatically guarantee team success when basketball remains fundamentally a collective sport that requires chemistry development, systematic execution, and the kind of trust building that can only develop through shared experiences over extended periods, rather than being manufactured through media pressure or fan expectations that ignore the actual timeline required for championship-level teamwork to develop organically between elite players who are still learning each other's tendencies, preferences, and basketball instincts during competitive situations? The ongoing narrative that suggests this Lakers team somehow lacks championship potential because they haven't achieved immediate perfection ignores every single example of championship team development throughout NBA history. Because if you examine the trajectory of legendary Lakers teams from the Magic Johnson era, the Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal partnership, or even the more recent LeBron James championship run, every single one of those teams faced similar periods of adjustment, external criticism, and temporary setbacks that ultimately served as stepping stones rather than roadblocks toward championship excellence when organizational patience allowed natural development to occur without artificial pressure or unrealistic expectations. What makes the criticism of the Doncic, James, and Reeves combination particularly absurd is the underlying assumption that championship-level chemistry should develop instantaneously rather than requiring the kind of repetition, trust-building, and shared experiences that historically characterize every successful basketball combination in NBA history. And acting like temporary growing pains represent permanent limitations demonstrates exactly the kind of analytical superficiality that prevents casual observers from understanding how championship teams actually develop their identity through overcoming adversity, rather than avoiding it completely while building the systematic approaches that determine playoff success when individual talent must translate into collective execution under maximum pressure. Thinking about this more comprehensively, isn't it fascinating how Brian Windhorst and other supposed basketball experts can focus exclusively on small sample sizes of games where the Big Three played together, while completely ignoring the injury interruptions, opponent quality variations, officiating inconsistencies, and random basketball variants that affect every team throughout long seasons, when competitive intensity varies dramatically between games that matter for playoff positioning and contests where teams are experimenting with rotations or managing player health concerns that become crucial during championship runs. The DeAndre Aton situation represents exactly the kind of complex player evaluation that separates intelligent basketball analysis from reactionary criticism based on unrealistic expectations, because while his recent performances have included both encouraging signs like the 21.13 rebound effort against Orlando and occasional frustrations with his role definition and competitive consistency, any reasonable assessment must consider the adjustment period required for a talented player who is learning new teammates, coaching systems, and role expectations while dealing with minor physical issues that affect virtually every NBA player throughout long seasons when the competitive intensity and physical demands test everyone's durability and consistency on a nightly basis. What critics seem determined to overlook when evaluating Aton's contributions is that championship teams don't require every player to be spectacular every night. They need systematic reliability and role clarity that allows talented individuals to contribute within structured systems rather than demanding individual brilliance that disrupts team chemistry and tactical execution. And when you examine Aton's production objectively, rather than through the lens of whatever narrative happens to be popular during any particular week, it becomes clear that he's providing exactly the kind of interior presence that championship teams require from their center position when surrounded by appropriate complementary talent and tactical schemes that maximize his strengths. The broader roster construction challenges that this organization faces represent exactly the kind of strategic complexity that championship franchises must navigate while balancing immediate competitive needs with long-term sustainability. And the depth concerns that continue affecting rotation decisions demonstrate why systematic player development and strategic acquisitions become more important than panic moves that sacrifice future flexibility for short-term roster fixes that might not address underlying issues or create sustainable competitive advantages over multiple seasons when championship windows require maintaining excellence rather than achieving temporary improvement. I believe the situation surrounding young players like Dalton Knecht, Bronny James, Adu Thero, Kobe Bufkin, and Chris Minion represents exactly the kind of organizational asset that separates franchises with championship vision from teams that focus exclusively on immediate results without considering how systematic talent cultivation creates both competitive depth and trade flexibility that becomes invaluable during crucial decision points throughout multi-year championship windows when roster adjustments must be made based on changing circumstances and emerging opportunities. The question of whether these young players should receive increased playing time during the remainder of this season represents exactly the kind of strategic decision that requires balancing immediate competitive goals with long-term organizational development. And while some analysts advocate for prioritizing veteran experience during playoff pushes, there's significant merit to the argument that providing meaningful opportunities for young talent during competitive games creates the kind of preparation and confidence that transforms potential into actual contribution when championship stakes are highest and every roster spot must provide value. But here's what makes the youth development discussion particularly interesting. How many championship teams throughout NBA history have benefited from young players who gained crucial experience during regular season adversity and then became unexpected contributors during playoff runs when veteran players faced injury concerns or needed additional rest? And shouldn't this Lakers organization be exploring every possible avenue for maximizing their roster depth, rather than limiting their options based on conventional wisdom that might not apply to their specific circumstances and competitive timeline? Jeff Teague's continued confidence in the Lakers as a potential dark horse playoff threat reflects exactly the kind of basketball intelligence that comes from extensive NBA experience and understanding how championship-level talent can overcome temporary inconsistencies when the competitive intensity increases and teams begin focusing exclusively on maximizing their potential rather than experimenting with different combinations or managing regular season concerns that become irrelevant during postseason basketball when execution and mental toughness matter more than regular season records or media narratives. What makes Teague's perspective particularly valuable is his understanding that playoff basketball rewards teams with multiple elite creators who can generate quality offense during pressure situations, and the Lakers' combination of Doncic, James, and Reeves provides exactly the kind of offensive versatility that creates matchup problems for opposing defenses when games slow down and every possession requires precise execution rather than relying on transition opportunities or favorable officiating that might not be available during crucial postseason moments when championships are determined by systematic excellence rather than random variance. The contrast between Teague's optimism and Byron Scott's more pessimistic assessment reveals exactly the kind of analytical divide that characterizes much contemporary basketball discourse. Because while Scott's concerns about roster depth highlight legitimate questions about whether this organization possesses sufficient talent throughout their rotation to withstand the kinds of injuries, foul trouble, and matchup challenges that inevitably arise during 7-game playoff series, his perspective might underestimate this team's ability to develop chemistry and systematic execution that could overcome depth limitations through superior talent and coaching intelligence. However, Scott's Lakers legacy and desire for sustained excellence creates credibility for his concerns about whether this current roster construction provides the kind of championship infrastructure that the franchise's historical standards demand, and his skepticism represents exactly the kind of institutional memory that prevents organizations from accepting mediocrity or making excuses for underperformance when championship expectations require maintaining excellence regardless of circumstances, or external challenges that might affect other franchises with less demanding competitive standards. The approaching buyout deadline on March 1st represents exactly the kind of opportunity that championship organizations use to address specific roster needs without sacrificing long-term flexibility. And while the available options might not include transformative talents who single-handedly change team trajectories, quality veterans who understand playoff basketball and can contribute immediately within structured systems often provide exactly the kind of insurance and depth that becomes crucial during championship runs when every roster spot must provide value and versatility. Chris Middleton's current situation with Dallas, where the organization has reportedly given him the choice between remaining with their rebuilding project or seeking a buyout that would allow him to join a playoff contender, creates exactly the kind of opportunity that the Lakers should explore aggressively, regardless of whatever financial considerations might complicate such acquisitions. Because his combination of championship experience, shooting ability, and basketball intelligence would address multiple roster concerns while providing the kind of playoff-tested veteran presence that young players need to accelerate their own development and competitive confidence. Middleton's track record with Milwaukee, particularly his contributions during their 2021 championship run, demonstrates exactly the kind of secondary scoring and clutch performance capability that championship teams require when primary options face increased defensive attention during playoff series. And his ability to create his own shot while also functioning effectively within team concepts makes him exactly the kind of versatile weapon that could provide tactical advantages during crucial games when matchups require creative solutions and systematic adjustments. The potential availability of Matisse Thybulle represents another intriguing possibility for an organization that continues seeking defensive improvements and perimeter versatility. Because while his offensive limitations are well documented and create legitimate concerns about his ability to contribute during playoff games when scoring becomes more difficult and every possession matters, his ability to disrupt opposing ball handlers and create transition opportunities through deflections and steals could provide exactly the kind of defensive energy that championship teams use to create momentum during crucial stretches when games are decided by possessions rather than extended offensive runs. Thinking about Thybulle's fit within this Lakers system, his defensive specialization could become particularly valuable during matchups against elite guards and wings who typically present the greatest challenges for championship teams during playoff series. And his experience in high-pressure situations with Philadelphia provides exactly the kind of playoff background that often translates into crucial contributions during moments when less experienced players might struggle with the competitive intensity and systematic execution required for championship success. The longer-term roster construction opportunities available through this summer's restricted free agency market offer several fascinating possibilities that could significantly impact this organization's championship trajectory over multiple seasons, with players like Benedict Mathurin representing exactly the kind of two-way talent that championship organizations prioritize when building sustainable competitive advantages through strategic acquisitions, rather than hoping that veteran minimums and mid-level exceptions somehow create championship-caliber depth without addressing underlying roster construction issues. Mathurin's recent success with the Clippers, following his trade from Indiana, demonstrates exactly what happens when talented players find appropriate organizational fits that maximize their strengths while minimizing their limitations through coaching schemes and roster construction that emphasize systematic excellence rather than individual heroics. And his combination of scoring ability, athletic tools, competitive spirit, and age profile would address multiple Lakers needs while providing the kind of wing depth that becomes crucial during playoff rotations when matchups require tactical flexibility and depth chart versatility. The possibility of pursuing Jalen Duren from Detroit represents exactly the kind of ambitious roster building that championship organizations consider when evaluating how to maximize their championship windows through strategic investments in young talent who could provide both immediate impact and long-term value. Because while Detroit would obviously prefer to retain their young all-star center, the financial realities of NBA salary cap management occasionally create opportunities for teams willing to make substantial financial commitments to elite talents who could transform their competitive ceiling and championship timeline. Duren's combination of athleticism, rebounding, defensive potential, and age profile would address the Lakers' most significant roster weakness while providing exactly the kind of rim protection and interior presence that championship teams require when facing elite offensive talents during postseason basketball. And his youth ensures that any investment would provide long-term value rather than representing a short-term roster fix that ignores future flexibility and sustainable competitive advantages that determine championship windows. But here's the question that needs to be asked about pursuing someone like Duren. How exactly would Detroit justify allowing a 22-year-old all-star center to leave their organization when their entire competitive timeline depends on building around young talent? And what kind of offer would create sufficient financial pressure to force them into a situation where matching becomes impossible due to luxury tax implications or roster construction limitations that prevent them from maintaining their current core while adding necessary complementary pieces? Walker Kessler's unfortunate shoulder surgery that will sideline him for the remainder of this season represents exactly the kind of situation that creates both risk and opportunity for organizations evaluating summer acquisitions. Because while his injury history raises legitimate durability concerns that must be factored into any long-term investment decisions, his defensive impact and offensive efficiency when healthy make him exactly the kind of player who could significantly impact championship trajectories if he can return to full health and maintain consistent availability throughout crucial seasons. The previous trade discussions involving Mark Williams, including the failed physical that prevented his acquisition by the Lakers earlier this season, creates interesting historical context for potential future negotiations, because both organizations understand the value proposition and contract parameters that would be necessary for completing such a transaction, potentially streamlining future discussions if Phoenix decides to prioritize other roster construction approaches, or if Williams' situation changes due to performance concerns or organizational direction shifts. Peyton Watson's reported attractiveness to the Lakers organization reflects exactly the kind of strategic thinking that separates championship franchises from teams that focus exclusively on immediate needs without considering how versatile players create tactical advantages that become invaluable during playoff adjustments when opposing teams force unexpected matchups that require creative solutions rather than rigid adherence to predetermined rotations that might not account for game-specific circumstances and strategic necessities. The fundamental question regarding positional priorities for summer roster construction represents exactly the kind of strategic decision that requires comprehensive evaluation of current talent, championship timeline, competitive landscape, and organizational philosophy. Because while both wing depth and interior presence represent significant needs that must be addressed through intelligent acquisitions, the approach to addressing these concerns will determine whether this organization can maximize its championship window while maintaining future flexibility and sustainable excellence. I believe the emphasis should focus on acquiring the highest quality talent available, regardless of position, because championship teams find ways to integrate elite players through tactical adjustments and creative lineup combinations, rather than limiting their options based on predetermined positional requirements that ignore how modern basketball rewards versatility over traditional role specialization and systematic team building over conventional roster construction approaches that might not account for specific organizational strengths and competitive circumstances. The evaluation of veteran contributions versus youth development represents another crucial consideration for an organization that must balance immediate competitive goals with long-term sustainability and championship timeline management. Because while veteran experience provides immediate playoff readiness and systematic understanding that can accelerate team development, systematic youth cultivation creates the kind of organizational depth and trade flexibility